Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you doing? Welcome to Monday. I am Dr. Paul, and we are getting everything going here so I can answer all your questions here on Monday morning on the Healthy Mind. I know you're thinking, wait a minute. Yes, every day I get up and then we do a small segment on the Healthy Mind. And as my stuff is loading, I'd like to say thank you and welcome for joining Dr. Paul here on the Healthy Mind. I am just waiting for a couple things to load up, and then we can get going. So let's see. There you go. So, Healthy Mind, welcome again. I want to thank for people popping on Instagram, Periscope, YouTube, Facebook. You all guys are coming on online all at the same time. This morning, my computers were a little bit sleepy, meaning they had to restart, which is funny because when you're working on something and your mind is the same thing, and this is probably when we talk about a closed system. The computer is not a closed system, it's an open system. As we know that because when it's connected to the internet, right? So when it's connected to the internet, that means there's an influx of things coming in. And when it comes to the healthy mind, when it comes to understanding the healthy mind, you got to understand how it's not a closed system. And what do you mean by a closed system? So your house is on a circuit loop, right? And if you look at electricity as a closed system in your house, there's no other outside electricity coming in, but it is connected to the outside electricity to the junction to the street electricity. Okay, so does that mean it's a closed system or does it mean it's an open system? Well, I actually think it's considered to be a closed system because no other influences affects the electricity of the house. But what does come from the outside is it's connected to one source to the street, and that's how your lights light on. But inside your house, it's a closed system. Well, your mind in a healthy mind, and then this week we're talking about the emotional mind. We're going to be talking about the emotional mind, and it's an open system. And the reason why it's an open system is because there's a lot of things influencing you. We talked last week on the wise mind, and the week before that we did the rational mind. If you want to go back to that and touch on some of those topics, and this way you can understand what I'm referring to as I bounce back and forth, because some of the things are going to be the same thing. We're going to be actually referring to the same things as the synapses. We're going to be talking about how the chemical of the mind works, or the chemical of the brain works for the emotional mind. And what's an emotional mind, right? Emotional mind, most people say if you live in an emotional world, you're just pretty much flying off on the handle, right? That's not true. It's just that you probably have more expression and other things. Okay, so you have some anger, irrational. Okay, you have anything that's emotional is coming from the emotional mind. So remember the mind system influences this way. So on one side you have the emotional, the middle you have the wise because it connects between the two, and then on one side you have the rational. So the wise connects between the rational and emotional, and now we're just talking about the emotional mind. The reason why the emotional mind is the last for me to go over is because I think it's the most difficult. And the reason why it's the most difficult because we're going to be talking about the limbic system. We're going to be talking about the limbic system. We're going to be talking about the vagus nerve. We're going to be talking about a lot of things and how it influences our emotional mind. So when it comes to emotions, Good morning, everyone. Good morning, honey. When it comes to the emotions, and when I teach emotional reaction training, is to understand again where you are, where you're going, and what it does for you. If you don't understand all that, then things that were only emotional, and of course, when we talk about the limbic system, we're going to be talking about that's the brain, that's a part of the brain of where a lot of the emotions come in, right? We always talked about the hippocampus, we always talked about, like I said, we talked before about the different um, 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 serotonin levels. We talked about the neurotransmitters of different other parts of the brain and what lights up and what doesn't light up. And we're going to be going over all that. If you have any questions, again, I want you to put in your comments below. Ask anything you want. Also, go back because a lot of these are steps moving forward. During this time of, and it started out with, remember, some of you people who didn't know, if we will talk about the emotional mind, this all started out because I really believe we're grieving. I really believe that we're going through some things in this time period. We are working on some processes, and in this process, I believe we could be better as we come out of this. Whatever this is, there's going to be a new normal, and in a new normal, and in a grieving process, we have time to. This is more than reflection. This should be more about education, training, practice, and doing, right? Because when you educate yourself, you're not doing. When you are training, you're not doing. When you're practicing, you're not doing. All those are steps to action, okay? Excuse me, one of my cameras is going down on me real quick. I have to. I apologize again. Oh. Well, let's see if it lasts because this camera is going down. Anyway, so when we're talking about things that we're doing on an emotional level, we got to talk about how we react to things, right? Reactive. So if we're talking about things that are reactive, and it's mostly coming from the emotional mind, like I said, we're going to be going through the cellular level, we're going to be doing what the brain activity is, we're going to be going through what the physical activity is, because we have an emotional body. We have a body that is connected to the open system. And that open system is feeling a lot of things that we have never felt before, and we're not understanding how it's being felt. How does the emotional mind help you living every day? Well, it's a great question because this is not just about the emotional mind. Thank you for the question. This is not just about the emotional mind. This is about the healthy mind. The healthy mind is understanding the emotional mind, understanding the wise mind, understanding the rational mind, understanding where you are developing your action from and how you got to your action. So through your practice, through your training, through your faith, right? These things are so important because before you have all that, you will have to develop a balance before you develop an action. You know, when we come down all the way down here to this action, and that is where we're at, we have to understand that these are the things that is affecting what we're doing. I'm just checking on my YouTube here. That is the thing that we are checking, and that's what we're doing. Because a lot of times we don't understand what we're doing, and that's the action. And we come right from one mind, whether it be the rational, wise, or emotional, and we're all the way down here to the action, and we have no idea what our process is. So the emotional process, and we live in an emotional time. Actually, we've lived in all these times. I wrote I write a lot, and I wrote about how this time is no different than a time that anyone who has suffered a lot before, who has lost a lot of death, whether it be in some type of war, combat, we are going through, I think we're now, majority of us is feeling the same thing. That seems to be different. Because if you had a person who's a first responder that goes and deals with people with death, or you have a person that's working in hospitals, so now we're like looking at things like, oh my God, look at all these people who are working so hard. Well, let me ask you this question. Have you ever thought about them when they didn't work hard? Because a lot of people in the hospitals have worked hard for a long time, and no one thought about them. They've always put themselves on the front line with chemical diseases and different diseases because they're working with people. But now that they're highlighted, they're now, because they're highlighted, they're on the forefront of our minds. We have to ask ourselves, why didn't we think of the things we've thought in this time than we haven't thought before? That's what I want to talk about on the Healthy Mind. Because if you haven't thought about them before, then that's the question you could ask yourself, and that's the development, that's the practice, that's the training. Because even as martial artists, we don't want to we don't train in case scenarios, right? We don't train in case something happens, this is what you do. If this happens, this is what you do. That is not training. That is false training, right? That is false training, because you can't train for every scenario. So you have to learn how to train your mind, right? You train your mind, train the body, train the spirit, train the soul. So when you are practicing and training and having faith, and you balance all those things, you can understand the open system of how it affects you. Then you can develop your action. Because if you're just moving, you're walking. I took my wife on a walk this weekend, and we went out to the woods, and it was just a natural walk. And one of the things that I was helping her to develop was what you call concentrated walk, or moment walk, meaning understanding of how you step, how you move, how you breathe, and how you move through the woods. It's a beautiful thing, but most people don't do that, right? Because we're so busy going from point A to point B, and there's a lot of steps in between. So in an open system, when you have all these things coming in, and a time of quote crisis, there are things that are affecting you. And if you don't know how it's affecting you, then it's actually the one that's moving you. So this is what we're going to go over this week, Emotional Mind. If you have any questions, always contact me at drpaulholisticscience.com. I'm with you every day between Monday and Friday, and I am thankful for all the people who are joining me this morning. Let me see if I think I have another comment. Hold on. Emotions are part of who we are. God created us to have emotions. Therefore, why is it frowned upon when someone is emotional? Well, I don't think, thank you, that's my wife who asked that question. I don't think it's frowned upon. What I think it is, and this is delicate, is that it's not understood. And when something is not understood, okay, so you have know, understand, process, action. You have process, know, understand, action. If you remember all the other stuff I had in between that, right? You have a process, which is an open system. You have know meaning something that is being informed into. That is just information. Then you have understand. Understanding means it's understanding your process, understanding the information. Then that's part of the mind, right? Because any idiot and that's a technical term. An idiot could know something, but very few people have an understanding of their mind, not of what is said. Understanding it, so information is just information, right? All the five senses, the five E's. The process, understanding your process, where the lineage of your process comes from, where it happens, how long and when, and the history of why you don't like swimming in the water. All your phobias has a process. Then after understand, because that's what we're talking about when a healthy mind, and it's not so much as frowned upon. I don't think people understand, and that's why when they get straight to they go from a process to an action. Things are missed in the understanding. And so they go right to an action. And if you go right to an action and you have not had practice, training, and faith in the balance of all your mental mind, your physical mind, your spiritual mind, your soulful mind, and your soulful bodies, and your soul, all these things are balanced, and you go straight to an action, you're missing so much. So let's go over that. Thank you for the question. I don't want to take too much of your time. Again, I want you to stay healthy, stay safe, stay blessed, and make sure you get your exercises in, make sure you get your meditation in, and make sure you get your practice in. Because without self-practice, we cannot be a healthy nation, community, and neighborhood. So many blessings to all of you. I will see you again tomorrow.